All right, guys, what is up? On the bench today, we have a SKX A35 with that beautiful yellow dial. So, my buddy Brave Sailor actually posted this up on the Discord saying that he was having some issues with the movement. So, he's reporting a low power reserve. So, he will wear this all day long and then set it down and it'll die on him overnight. So this watch should have a 42-hour power reserve. So wearing it all day, it should run for the next two. That's how all my SKXs run. So it's definitely got something funky going on with the movement. So I actually offered to replace it for him with a factory 7S26C out of one of my modded SKXs. So he wants to keep this original with the original movement with 9 hacking and 9 hand winding. And I 100% agree with him. In hindsight, I wish I wouldn't have modded a lot of my older SKXs. You know, now that they're discontinued and they're becoming a little harder to find, um, I really enjoy my ones that aren't modded. So with the resources out there today, you can build an SKX from the ground up. I don't really see a need to mod one anymore. I'd much prefer to keep them original. So I appreciate his decision to put in a 7S26C. Um, there's something kind of uh, nostalgic or charming, however you want to describe it, about having a movement that doesn't hack or hand wind. Um, I know we guys, kind of make a big deal about having those amenities in our watches today, and I can see, I prefer having them as well. But there's something, that I really can't even explain about having um, an original SKX with those quirky little movement features, um, and it just kind of takes you back a little bit. As weird as that sounds, that's just the best way I can kind of explain it. So we're going to be doing a movement swap for him today. Uh, I know we said that we were going to try to keep it as original as possible, but if you look at the hands, they're pretty tarnished and a bit banged up and stuff like that. So we are going to be replacing them with OEM SKX 007 hands. I haven't talked to him about what he wants to do with the second hand yet, because this one has the loom pip on the counterbalance, whereas this one has the lollipop up at top. So I'll ask him if he wants to change the second hand as well. I'm thinking that he probably won't. So I agree with that too. Probably keep it as original as we can here. So, other than the low power reserve, a couple things stuck out to me as well. So, doesn't have hacking. See, that's the crown all the way out. The hands are misaligned as well. So here we go up at 12 o'clock. You can see that our hand is not lined up with the minute hand. And at 6 o'clock, you can really see the difference here. So that's the hour hand in the middle of the 6 o'clock marker. And when we try to line them up, they're off by quite a bit. So we're going to fix that today as well. Other than that, the watch is in pretty good shape. We're not going to, change the bezel insert or anything like that. And this Hardlex crystal does not have any scratches on it, although it does have a few smudges on the underside of the crystal. I don't know how well you guys can see that. I'll go ahead and point them out here. So there's some actual smudges underneath the crystal. So something went on here before he bought this watch. But you know, I suspect that whoever he bought the watch from, replaced the crystal or something, because this Hardlex has no scratches on it whatsoever. So probably had a crystal replacement, to make it look a little bit better. Um, so we do have some smudges underneath there. We'll clean that up for him today as well. So I don't know how well you can see those smudges. Hopefully that's coming through. I tried to wipe them away because I thought they were on the top side, but trust me, after wiping for 5 or 6 minutes, they're definitely on the underside of that crystal. So we'll get that cleaned up as well. Movement swap. We will put a new case back gasket on, and we are going to be replacing at the bare minimum the hour and minute hand, but they're original hands, so it's not like we're going to be installing Frankenstein hands on here or anything like that. They're genuine SKX hands, so they will look just like this. They'll just be cleaner and better looking, and still keeping that OEM originality. So we're gonna go ahead and get into that, and let's get started. All right, guys. So I'm just gonna start by removing the strap here, and to do that, I'm just gonna use the fork side of my Bergeon spring bar tool. I'm gonna get in that little groove right there. The spring bar pops right out, and it actually kind of got left behind there, and now it wants to roll away on me. But let's go ahead and get the other side out real quick, and we're just gonna get right in that little groove like we did on the other side, and the spring bar will just pop right out, and that one got left behind too. So we'll go ahead and put those aside for later. So now we can go ahead and remove the case back. I like to use a plastic bag. These case backs can be on pretty tight sometimes, and these case back removal tools can actually slip and scratch the case. So to prevent that, I like to use a plastic bag. I'm going to break that loose. This wasn't on here too tight or anything like that, so came off pretty easy. Now we can use our case back removal tool to finish breaking it loose all the way. And then once we have it, most of the way loose, we can just use our fingers to get it off the rest of the way. So go ahead and remove our case back, and let's have a look at the movement real quick. So at first glance, it does seem to be running pretty well, actually. You can see that balance beating away. So that means the amplitude is pretty healthy at the very least. And, when I spin the rotor, it does seem to wind the movement. So it's actually winding the movement in both directions as well. So that feels pretty good. But the bearing itself feels a little gritty and stiff. So it's probably not spinning super well. And the bearing is a little loud also. So the other thing that I did notice as well is that there's a dot on this little gear right there. So that dot on that gear should line up with the post on the balance bridge when the rotor is facing towards the crown. And you can see when I put the rotor towards the crown that that dot doesn't actually line up. And that might have something to do with the low power reserve. However, I don't think it's a big enough deal to account in such a drastic drop in power reserve. It should at least still run for a decent length of time. So it's probably more likely that this watch has a mainspring problem, and the mainspring itself is probably bad or something. So we're going to go ahead and remove the crown here and continue with the movement replacement. So just unthread that, and then there's a little lever to get the crown out. So now that we have the crown out, I was actually looking at it, and the crown gasket actually looks like it's been replaced at some point, and it even looks a little wet, like it was lubricated with some grease at some point. So that's good, and the crown gasket looks well, and it looks in good shape. So let's turn our attention to the case back gasket, and the same cannot be said for this. This gasket looks pretty old. It's actually smushed flat, and it feels pretty stiff here. Yeah, that is pretty cooked. Not so good, so we're going to go ahead and get that out of there, and we will replace that when we have the movement replaced. So we can go ahead and flip the case over now, and then we'll just go ahead and give it a little tap here. Boop, and the movement comes right out of the case. So now I'm going to go ahead and install the movement into my little movement holder. And before we do that, we're going to go ahead and install the crown real quick. That way we can adjust our hands. So we'll place that in the movement holder here. And then we'll go ahead and line the hands up so it makes it easier to remove them. So we'll go ahead and get those aligned. And then I'm going to go ahead and use my Bergeon dial protector. We'll go ahead and insert that right underneath the hands, and this will protect the dial when we go to remove them. And then I also use a plastic bag as well, and this will actually help hold the seconds hand still because this is a non-hacking movement. So we're going to go ahead and let it line up a little better, just like that. And you can see when I put the plastic bag on there, it stops the seconds hand. So now we can go ahead and remove the hands. Get our tool underneath there and remove the hands just like that. We'll go ahead and set those aside. We won't be using the hour or minute hand, but we will be reusing that seconds hand. So I'll go ahead and remove our dial protector here. And now we can go ahead and remove our dial. So if you look closely here, actually, you'll see that there's a little notch cut out in that movement ring with some space underneath of it, so you can get a flat head underneath of the dial. And there's one on both sides, just like this. And we can get our little screwdriver underneath there, and that helps get our dial feet up so we can go ahead and remove our movement here. So we'll just go ahead and gently use our flathead screwdriver to get that movement up off the movement ring. And there is a look at the dial. It's in really good shape, so looks really good. Now we can go ahead and switch our movements. This is actually our new movement here. I know it looks pretty identical, but it is the new movement. And I am checking the quick set function on the day and date wheels because I did have to replace the day wheel. So this is the one that was on my original 7S 26C. And then for some reason, mine had a gray movement spacer. I probably put that on the 7S at some point because they all did come with a black movement spacer. So I went ahead and swapped the movement spacer over from the other movement. And again, I swapped that day wheel. We'll get that out of here. So with all that swapped over, we can go ahead and reinstall our dial. So we'll go ahead and get it lined up here and get the dial feet in their little spots. Give it a little push and then a little nudge, and goes right on just like that. So that dial looks so good. It almost looks wet. This is definitely some type of enamel or lacquer kind of dial. And looking at pictures of these dials online don't do them any kind of justice. But let's go ahead and turn our crown over until we get a natural date change. So once we see it click over to the 16th, just like that, we know we're at 12 o'clock midnight, and we can go ahead and install our hands. So let's go ahead and get our hour hand on here. So I just use some Rodico to help get it lined up, and then it's not lined up too great there. We'll just go ahead and get it right in the center, just like that. And then we'll go ahead and press it on. And now let's have a look at it. And that looks dead center to me. I really appreciate Seiko for including that little line in between the 12 o'clock indice. I used to think that was just for like aesthetics, but now that I'm installing the hands, I actually realize that that has a second purpose to make it easier to align the hands when you're installing them. So genius of Seiko to do that. Not only does it look cool, but it actually serves a purpose. So go ahead and look from the side profile there, and that hour hand is right in the center of that line. So looking great. We'll go ahead and install our minute hand next. And we'll go ahead and get that aligned with some Rodico, and then go ahead and press that on. Give it a nice firm press. Then we're going to go ahead and check to make sure that it's aligned correctly as well. And it is looking good to me. So we'll go ahead and check our alignment at all of our cardinal positions here. We're just going to check at 9 o'clock. That is looking beautiful. We're going to go ahead and check at 12 o'clock. And our natural date changed over at about 11:54, which is pretty good, definitely within the window. And that hand alignment looks beautiful. They're both lining up great. We'll go ahead and check from the side profile here to make sure we have clearance in between the hand stack. And that's looking great as well. So we can go ahead and install our seconds hand next. I zoomed in here so you can see that tiny little post on the cannon pinion, and then get our seconds hand right on that. Give it a little press, and now it's on there, and you can see it running. So I do like to check from the side profile and make sure that our seconds hand has clearance as well. So you can see we have plenty of clearance, and the hand stack looks great. Now we're just going to go ahead and set the hands to 12 o'clock because, well, it's satisfying. So now that we're happy with the movement side of things, we can go ahead and turn our attention towards the case. And if my camera would focus here, you can actually see with the movement out, you can see all those smudges I was talking about. So we're going to go ahead and clean those up with a microfiber cloth. This one's actually from Crystal Times. So we're going to go ahead and do our best to clean that up, and let's have a look. All we did was smudge that around. Actually looks worse. So I will continue cleaning here. I'm going to use Rodico to clean now. I think it cleans better than that microfiber cloth, and it can get into those hard to reach places. I sped this up because it was kind of a timely process. So here is the finished result, and that crystal looks so much better, much cleaner now, and definitely looks a lot better. So here's my hands in the background for some contrast, so you can see the clarity of the crystal. Looks much better. Now that I'm looking at it closer, there are a few little scratches on this crystal, but nothing too much to be too fussed about or anything like that. So we're just gonna keep the original crystal and go ahead and get ready to install our movement back in. So we'll go ahead and pop this out and flip it over, and we'll go ahead and put it back into our movement holder here. That way we can remove our crown. And then pop the crown all the way in, and then we can access that little lever and pull the crown right out. Now we can go ahead and flip it back over and remove our movement, just like that. And then we can go ahead and get ready to reinstall it back into the case. So just go ahead and get this lined up with the crown tube, and then flip it over, give it a little nudge, get the movement all the way installed into the case. And that looks pretty good to me. Now we can go ahead and install our new case back gasket. I'm just getting a little bit of silicone grease here. We're going to rub that all over our gasket. This grease actually does three things. So not only will it prolong the life of the gasket, but it will also help reduce the friction when we screw our case back down. And then it will also help keep it in place in that little groove inside the case. So we'll just go ahead and give it a little press and make sure it's all the way in that groove there. And then now we can go ahead and reinstall our case back. So we're just going to go ahead and Get that screwed all the way down, finger tight, and then I will snug it up with my case back tool here. I'm just going to snug it. We'll torque it all the way down a little bit later, but got it pretty snug for now. And let's have a look at how it came out. I think it looks great. I'm really happy that Brave Sailor chose to keep, a 7S26 movement in here. And we're just going to go ahead and check our, crown setting functions real quick. Go ahead and pull the crown out all the way. Make sure that we can, set our time and stuff like that. So we will go ahead and set our hands to 10 and 2. Boom. That looks good to me. And our bezel is a little misaligned and my OCD won't allow it. So I'm going to fiddle with the bezel and we will realign that. And there we go. A little backspin, and now satisfied. Let's go ahead and thread our crown back in down to the case, and then I will go ahead and get this thing on a strap, and I'll show you guys what it looks like on wrist and out in some natural light. So here it is out in some natural light, and you can see just how vivid and striking that yellow dial really is. So Brave Sailor totally told me that I could keep this watch for a few extra days and wear it, strictly for testing purposes only. So I am happy to report that a few days later, the watch is running well, keeping really good time, and most importantly, the power reserve is as it should be. So it actually ran for a whole 41 hours after I took it off my wrist. So I'm happy to report that. And how nice is it that the hands are replaced? Such a simple little thing, but it really brings this watch to life and makes it look a lot better. Simple mods like that can make a watch breathe new life into a watch. So thanks for coming along with this refresh of this really beautiful SKX A35. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you all in the next video.